let's say you pulled your marketing from PropStream, you have your list from Driving for Dollars, you have your list from your county, and you've got a list source or whatever sources you have used in your business to get your marketing list. The next part is, you guys might have heard a lot of investors use the term like stacking their list, which is essentially building a list of very targeted, motivated sellers from all the different lists that you have put together. So that's what we're going to talk about. All right, guys, my name is Sharad. We do these weekly calls. And since the beginning of the year, we started making these calls a little bit more structured around the 4 pillars of a successful real estate investing business. This is a little bit older presentation, so we are making some changes to it. But when you think about like the 4 main pillars of a successful real estate investing business, it's your data, where are you getting your list from? Basically, the list of motivated sellers, whether it be, buying it from PropStream, getting it from your county, getting it from your, Driving for Dollars or list source, whatever that might be. So you start real estate investing business on the data side of it. Then you move over to marketing, which is how you are reaching those motivated sellers, whether it be through direct mail, cold calling, texting, or you have inbound marketing like PPC, radio, TV. So that's your marketing side of it. And once you've done some marketing, you have some leads coming in. The next part is over on the sales side of your business, how you're talking to the motivated sellers, how you are converting these leads into deals. And then the next part, tracking, we're going to change that to operations, is once you've actually closed on a deal, what are the other things that are part of your business to make it a scalable business, from financials, how to run your meetings, how to train your employees. Last couple of weeks, we've talked about the data on, 2 weeks ago, we talked about how to pull your list from PropStream. And I just used, basically the marketing, the list that I'm going to reach out to in my market. And I shared kind of what I was doing in my market, which was basically absentee owners in my market. And I've sent out direct mail to them. And then last week, we talked about how to build your data using Driving for Dollars. We talked about how you can do that in REsimpli. So if you haven't watched any of those 2 trainings from last week, I recommend kind of go back and watch it. So because, these calls that we're doing are sort of building on top of what we have talked about, and then we'll start again. And again, you guys can ask any questions that you have. More than happy to answer any questions. And today we're going to talk about the next part of it, which is, let's say you pulled your marketing from PropStream, you have your list from Driving for Dollars, you have your list from, your county, and you've got a list source or whatever sources you have used in your business to get your marketing list. The next part is, you guys might have heard a lot of investors use the term like stacking their list, which is essentially building a list of very targeted, motivated sellers from all the different lists that you have put together. So that's what we're going to talk about. Before we get into it, here's a little bit about myself. That's a picture with me and my family from about last year, July. We went to Banff, Canada. I live in Toronto, Canada, happily married with 2 kids. I've been vegan for past 4 years. So it's a little bit about myself. And I passed my road test in 3rd attempt. Nothing that I'm super proud of, but that was in New York. And first time I ever drove after passing my road test in 3rd attempt was from New York to Chicago, because my company was paying me a little bit extra money if I moved on my own to my job in Chicago. So, and I'm the founder and CEO of REsimpli. I'm an active real estate investor in Northwest Indiana market. If you guys are not familiar with that market, it's right outside of Chicago, practically a suburb of Chicago, but in Indiana, Lake County, Indiana. I've completed over 750 deals. I bought my first property in August of 2010. Since then, I've completed 750 deals. Now I do about 20 to 25 deals a year. We close on everything, pretty much everything that we get under contract, and then we rehab them. Either we sell them, rehab them, sell them to a homeowner as a retail property, or we rehab them, rent them out, and then sell them to a turnkey property owner as a rental property. I own 50 plus rental properties of my own. And I also own a property management company in Indiana. And then for me, my personal mission is to help real estate investors close more deals with less software. So that's kind of a little bit background about myself for anybody who's not familiar with who I am. All right, so getting into list stacking. So, all right, let me see if there's a couple of questions. Can we watch previous mastermind videos from Facebook? Yes, Herman, you should be able to. If you go to our Facebook group, you should be able to watch all the recorded trainings in our in the Facebook, or you can also go to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we edit them, just take out some of the unnecessary clippings out, and it's just edited version, like maybe cut it down by 10-15 minutes. So yeah, if you want to do that. Liliana said, I have a foreclosure deal in Northwest Indiana I can use some help with. Yeah, absolutely, Liliana. I would love that. If you can send me an email at sharad@REsimpli.com, I would love to connect with you. We buy in North Lake County, except Gary and a couple of other cities. We buy pretty much everywhere. So cool. Awesome. I guess so. Anybody here who's not familiar with list stacking, I'm just curious if you guys can put it in chat. No idea. Or everybody here kind of knows what list stacking is. I'm curious. I'm going to go over the basic, but I'm just kind of curious, who here has. All right, so Brian here, no clue. It's cool. Not many people are actually super familiar with it, but yeah, we can get into it. So cool. So basically, list stacking is, so imagine you have, you put, so this is what I did 2 weeks ago. I actually pulled a list of absentee owners. So absentee owners are anyone that owns a property, but they're not living at that property. So that's absentee list. And then you have, so you're buying all these different marketing lists. Let's say you have absentee list, probate, pre-foreclosure, and driving for dollars. So if you were not using list stacking, what you would do is you would buy all these different lists, and then you would send, let's say for this purpose, we say we're going to use direct mail. So what would happen is, let's say you get a list of absentee owners. What you'll end up doing is you'll send mail to those 4,000 people. Then you'll get a list of probate, and then you'll send 3,000 mailers to those people. Then you'll get a list of pre-foreclosure, send them mail, 3,000 people. Driving for dollar, you mail them, or whatever marketing you're doing, you reach out to those 1,000 people. And then you'll have 11,000 marketing pieces, whether it's calling, texting, sending mail that you've done. But what list stacking does is it basically takes all the different marketing lists that you have, it puts it in a system like REsimpli list stacking, and then what it does, it only allows for one unique property to only show up on. So if you have, imagine if you have 123 Main Street on your absentee list, probate list, pre-foreclosure list, and driving for dollar list. If you were not stacking your list, if you were not cleaning up your data, then you would end up sending the owner of 123 Main Street for that property 4 mail pieces. You may end up calling that person 4 times. You may end up sending text message to that person 4 times, and it just makes you as the investor come across a little bit unprofessional, not knowing, what you're doing, reaching the same owner for the same property multiple times. So it's you can imagine any other business. Let's say if you go to, if there's a local dealership in your place, let's say the same owner owns, a Toyota in, so I'm going to use, in Lake County in my area, and the same owner owns another Toyota dealership in a different county, neighboring county. And if they keep sending me the mail, the same exact mail piece, wanting me to buy the car, but just from different dealerships, even though the dealership is owned by the same owner, it's just gonna, make it look like, hey, what's going on? You're sending me the same offer, exact same thing, just from 2 different, dealership. But in our case, it's going to be the exact same. Most of the time, people would just send the same direct mail or postcard or letter to the same person for the same property, exactly saying the exact same thing. And it just, the owner is going to look at it and wonder, hey, wait a minute, why are you sending me the same mail piece for the same property 4 different times? So that's what list stacking does. It makes your list very, very targeted. So imagine, you have, if you were not stacking your list, what you would be doing is you would be sending mail pieces to these 11,000 people. Now, let's say for this purpose, we're going to say, let's say postcard costs about 50 cents. So you're going to end up spending $5,500 reaching out to those 11,000 people. And what if you only had budget to spend about $1,500? then which, list are you going to pick? Are you going to pick absentee? Are you going to pick probate? Are you going to pick pre-foreclosure or driving for dollars? So that's another benefit where list stacking, what it does is, you put all your lists in in a list stacker, and it tells you which property owner is on multiple lists. So if you had a limited budget of, let's say, $1,500 to spend on your marketing, so what list stacking is going to do, it's going to tell you which property owner appears on multiple lists, has multiple pain points. So the best way to think of a list is a pain point, essentially. So when you pull a list of absentee, that's a pain point, that's a separate list, meaning think of a list as a pain point that the owner might have, a motivation point the owner might have why they would want to sell their property. So absentee, everything else being equal, an owner who does not live at their property would generally tend to be more motivated to sell their property than somebody who's a homeowner and lives at their property. So generally absentee tends to be one motivation point. And probate, if they're going through probate, that's another pain point or motivation point. Somebody who's on a pre-foreclosure, that's going to be another motivation or pain point that you have. And driving for dollars, what we talked about last week, you're adding properties to your driving for dollar list that have some signs of distress, meaning another motivation point or pain point that the owner has. So now if you only have a limited budget of $1,500 to spend on your marketing, you're going to look at people that are appearing on multiple lists. So everything else being equal, somebody who's just on absentee list versus somebody who's on absentee, probate, pre-foreclosure, and driving for dollar list, everything else being equal, they would have more motivation to sell their property than someone who's only on one list. So that's another value of stacking your list that you get, is you tend to find out the owners that have more motivation. So even if you have, $5,000 or $5,500 to spend, you want to reach after the people that have multiple motivation points, pain points, than somebody who's only on one list. So that's another thing that list stacking does really, really well, is it helps you stack your list and go after the people that have way more motivation to sell their property than someone who might just be on like one list there. So any questions on this before I kind of, go through and show you guys kind of how that works? You guys can
Sharad, quick question about that. Let's say you've got a highly motivated seller, and what would be your time frame on reaching out to them? Would it be like same day or a couple
Yeah, I
days
mean,
later?
it really depends on, I would reach out to them same day. So let's say if somebody, you also want to see what sort of list they're on, right? I mean, if somebody that's on just an absentee list, and let's say they only happen to be an absentee list, then, you could, you want to reach out to those people as soon as possible. But, how often do you reach out to them? That's where you want to, it depends on what list they're on. So someone who just on absentee list, I think sending them, again, for this purpose, I'm going to use direct mail as an example. So somebody who just on absentee list, sending them a postcard every 6 to 8 weeks is totally fine. Versus someone who's on pre-foreclosure list and they're going to lose their house, let's say end of, in 3 weeks or 4 weeks, their house is going to go to auction. So you don't want to reach out to them every 6 to 8 weeks. You want to reach out to them every week, be multiple times a week. You want to send them a letter, you want to call them, you want to text them. And depending on, if the house is occupied, I would even go knock on their door and just try to have that conversation. A lot of people have gotten success just by door knocking on, lists like a pre-foreclosure list. So it really depends on what list they're on. Like, I'll just tell you for myself, on my list of absentee, I am mailing them every like 6 to 8 weeks. I'm not mailing them every month. I think that's like too much, especially if you're using, if you're sending out mail letters using, let's say, pre-sorted standard postage, it could take like 2 to 3 weeks to actually get delivered. So you might send a pre-sorted letter at the beginning of the month, and that person might get it in, let's say mid of the month, or, in 3 weeks, and then you send another batch of mail beginning of next month. So they might get another postcard from you in like another 2 weeks after that. I think that's a bit too much. If you do every 6 to 8 months, or 6 to 8 weeks on your absentee, high equity, even like driving for dollar, I think that's totally fine. But more time sensitive, like your probate, pre-foreclosure, properties that are going to auction, properties, where there's like divorce, bankruptcy that have some sort of a deadline, I would change the cadence of how often you're reaching out to them, and also frequency of how often, like once a week or during the week you're reaching out. And also I would do multiple touches with those people.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Makes sense. I appreciate it.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. Great question, man. All right. Any other questions on that, guys, before I move forward? So yeah, I mean, if you look here, you might have 11,000 records in these 4 lists, but once you put it in, once you stack those lists, you might notice that you actually only have 8,000 unique addresses in your 4 different lists with 11,000 total records. You might only actually have 8,000 unique records. So even if you're going to reach every single person, instead of mailing to 11,000 people, spending $5,500 at 50 cents per postcard, you're only mailing 8,000 people, and then you're only spending $4,000 every mail drop that you're doing. So you're saving $1,500, that's one thing, and then you also are not sending the same mail piece to someone who's on multiple marketing lists. So really, really important. If you're doing, any sort of outbound marketing, direct mail, calling and texting, that you really start stacking your list. I mean, if there's just like one list that you're buying, then that's different. But if you're buying multiple lists from multiple sources and you're stacking them, you want to see which ones are vacant, which ones are not vacant. It really makes a difference. I talked to some of the most successful investors in the country at masterminds and stuff, and they say the absentee list, stacked with a vacant list or some other list, generally tends to perform the best. So you want to make sure you're giving yourself the advantage, and then you're saving money on marketing, and also have a way more targeted marketing list than you would otherwise have. So this is how you would basically stack a list. So I'm going to go in list stacking, click on add, and let me go into my test file. So let's say I'm going to take my absentee list of 4,000 people. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and upload this. So what you're doing is, so this is the list that I have. These are the columns in my spreadsheet. This is pretty standard, whether you get your list from CropStream, List Source, or Driving for Dollars. These are pretty standard, and in most cases, it would map, how the information needs to be mapped. So these are all the information columns that you're mapping here: last name, first name. You just want to make sure like the property address, mailing address, first name, last name, it's all mapped correctly. This is good. Property, city, state. So there's a whole bunch of other stuff that I'm not going to map for this purpose. So do not import. And I'm going to call this my absentee. All right, I'm going to create a new list. My absentee list. Okay. And I'm going to go ahead and submit. So it'll take a couple of minutes for the file to get imported. But basically what it's doing is it's taking the list of my 4,000 people and it's scrubbing it against the USPS updated address. So even if you have some addresses like 123 Main Street and you misspell, let's say Chicago, instead of CHICAGO, it just says CHICGO. So clean up all the addresses. So see, it took less than a minute. So I have, out of this list of 4,000, I have 3,561 valid address. So once you upload a list, that's another value that you get just using a list stacking. But once you upload a list, it cleans up all your addresses against USPS. So it tells me out of the 4,000 addresses, I have 3,561 valid property addresses. 400 are invalid. So it could be invalid because maybe you just have the street address. You just have 123 Main Street, no city, state, or zip code. So there's no way for the system to know which city, state the property is in. And then I deleted all the addresses before, so it didn't update anything. And there were 39 duplicates. So again, it cleaned up all my lists. So I'm going to go ahead and upload another list. For this purpose, I'm just going to use Driving for Dollars, and it should map everything. Just going to make sure it looks good. Do not import. And this I'm going to call my driving list. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and submit this. So now it's taking the list of 1,000 people that I have and doing the same process, uploading it in the system. I didn't check this list, but there should be some addresses that get updated. So I'm going to give it a minute for it to get. All right, so this is perfect. So if you see right here, the initial list that I uploaded of 4,000, about 3,500 valid addresses, 400 invalid, and there's some duplicate. Now, when I take my driving for dollar list of 1,000 records, so if I was not using list stacking, right, what I would do is I would take my list of absentee of 4,000, I would send out direct mail to them. So I've sent out 4,000 pieces of direct mail. Then I would take my list of driving for dollars, I take those 100 people, 1,000 people, sorry, and I would send out direct mail to them. So again, like I was talking, in this example, I would send out 5,000 pieces of direct mail. But if you look right here, what happens is before I send any marketing, I upload the list in my system. It tells me, okay, out of 4,000, 3,500 valid addresses. But the interesting thing is for my driving for dollar list, it updated 997 addresses, meaning they were already in the system in my list stacking, and they just got updated if I had any new information. So, if I had new first name, last name, or any other information, it just updated. So all of these 1,000 records, all of these, these 997 out of these 1,000 records were already included in my absentee list. So there's absolutely no need for me to send any marketing to my driving for dollar list if I've already marketed to my absentee list. So that's one part. The second part is, let's say if I only had money to send direct mail to only 1,000 people, then I would make sure I am only sending mail PC to these 1,000 people that are on my driving list and also on my absentee list, because I've already made sure like these are my absentee list. And while driving for dollars, I noticed some point of distress looking at their property. There was some need of some sort of repairs to their property. That's why I added them. So now these 1,000 people are on my driving for dollar list based on the condition of the property as I was driving, and they're also on my absentee list. So these are the only 1,000 people that I would want to target. So if I go back here, so I've got 4,070 properties. So these are leads. So that's why there's more than 4,000. Now, what I could do is I could say, all right, I want to see everyone that's on my absentee list, and that's also on my driving list. And I could either do or, so they're either on my absentee list or driving list. But for this purpose, what I want to see is that they're on both my lists. So if I do that, so these are the 997 properties. If I go back here, so these 997 properties are right here. And if you look right here, list and tag, so they're on both my absentee and driving list. So another thing you could do is, so again, if you only had budget to send marketing pieces to 1,000 people, then this is the list of 1,000 people that you want to send to, because they have two motivation points. They have absentee, and based on driving for dollars, there's some condition of the property from exterior that you could tell it's in need of repair. So this is your way more targeted list. Another thing you could do on top of this is, and it's pretty standard in any list stacking, we do this in REsimpli, you could also look at the vacant data. So if you do vacant, of the 997 properties that are on my absentee list and driving for dollar list, there are 70 properties that are vacant. So this is even more targeted list. So you started with 4,000 absentee, and then out of those 4,000, you looked at like 1,000 that are on absentee and your driving for dollar list. And then of those 997, there's 70 properties that are vacant. So you're sending mail pieces to these all 997, but these 70 properties, what you could do is you could skip trace them, and you could actually call them, or you could do a totally different marketing campaign that's specifically, targeted to vacant properties. You could say, hey, Jose, I noticed that, the property that you have at 6616 McCook Avenue, I understand it's been vacant. It's a vacant property. I love buying vacant properties. So it's very, very specific to that owner for vacant property. So that's another, benefit you get of stacking your list. You can make your marketing pieces way more targeted by reaching to specific owners about specific pain points. So now this gives you 3 pain points. So it tells you it's absentee, vacant, absentee list, driving list, and also vacant. So this is the column for vacant. This right here tells you, this icon tells you that the property address is vacant. And this right here tells you that both property and mailing address are both vacant. So wherever you're sending mail to this person at 4607 Ash Avenue is also vacant. So you may not want to send mail to that person at that property because it's vacant. So it's going to probably come back as return mail. One thing to keep in mind is this data is updated by USPS, so it's not going to be 100% accurate. They, I would say based on my experience, I've seen it be, off by 60 to 90 to 3 months. But again, 80 to 90% of this would be accurate. Again, this is coming from USPS, so it's pretty standard data. This is how everybody kind of has that flag vacant filter. But again, this is 80, 90% accurate. It'll give you really good data that you should still target. What we do in our business is even if it says the mailing address is vacant, we still end up sending them mail and just get a confirmation as a return mail. If it come back as return, then we remove them for future mailing. And there's going to be some addresses, for example, there might be this one that USPS is not showing as vacant, but when you actually send them mail piece, it might actually come back as return mail. It just USPS hasn't updated their database yet. It might have gone vacant, let's say yesterday, and now USPS tries to deliver it today. So, it takes them like 2 to 3 months to get the system updated, but it might come back as vacant. So then you go in and you update your database. So they send out mail to this person, it comes back return, then I'll just go ahead and update a return mail, yes, knowing that, okay, the mail that I sent to this person came back as return mail. So I don't need to mail them again. There's a different marketing channel that I might want to use, like calling them, texting them, or figure out some other way to reach to them. So that's the basic ins and outs of list stacking. There's also a detailed video that I did that's on our YouTube channel that I'll put a link to on our Facebook group. So you guys should watch. I basically went a little bit more in depth on what I talked about here. But if you guys are doing any outbound marketing, calling, texting, direct mail, I highly recommend, if you have a list anything more than 2,000 to 3,000 people, that you stack that list and get more targeted marketing lists, and just be more effective with your marketing. So, any questions on this? Adam has a question. What is the unique identifier between different contacts and ID number, the address? Also, is the limit of how many additional custom fields we can use? Adam, the unique identifier is the property address. So if I try to upload this property address 6616 McCook Avenue, it will not let me update. So it would just update. So let's say if I took this, if I uploaded another list of pre-foreclosure and I had 6616 McCook Avenue in my system, in my pre-foreclosure list, and I uploaded, what it would do is it would just increase this number. It would add another list of pre-foreclosure to that. So that's property address is always going to be unique. And then you multiple mailing address, you could have the same person have multiple properties. So that's driven based on the mailing address. So if I go,
Sharad, sometimes it'll say Ave, in other lists it'll say Avenue. So in order to make sure that they that they sync up, is there a unifying way to make sure sometimes if it says Ave or Avenue, that you don't get two records?
No, we'll clean it up. So if you upload it, we'll clean it up based on the USPS. So if, let's say, that's a great question, Ananda, thank you for bringing that up. So let's say if you have 123 Main Street, Chicago, Illinois 60605, and you have 123 Main Avenue, Chicago, Illinois 60605, but there's no 123 Main Avenue, then we will standardize the address and we would only upload it as 123 Main Street. So if I go back to my list, and let's say if I want to do valid property address, so I can also see all the addresses that are not valid. So there's, if you look at this, like this is obviously not a valid address, like we're just testing Yogi Bear, hashtag law. So there is something, some reason why these addresses are not valid. Maybe like there's no 3404, for example. So we will clean it up and then we check the data every single month. So every single month we check the data. So if you go right here on the dashboard, so you'll see total records that you have, how many of those are in leads and how many came back as vacant. Then what we'll do is, so we'll run the vacancy check every single month, and then we'll update the property address, mailing address, if you have updated data on whether it went vacant, any information that changed on the USPS side of it, we'll update it. And then you'll have, I think it's done by the 10th or 15th of each month. Once we get the data, we run every single address we run through the system. So if you have, it's avenue or street, but it's actually one address, and we'll clean it up and we'll put it as one address. Same thing on the, in this case, I didn't upload anything with a unit number, but if you had a unit number, it would also clean that data for unit number and PO box and everything. Yeah. Mike, you had a question?
Yes. So is there a way to mass update an entire list? Specifically, if a list was, I guess, input as all returned mail, that was incorrect. We don't know that yet. Is there a way to update all 800 or so addresses as not returned mail after you've uploaded it?
Yeah, so what you could do after you uploaded, then what I would do, so let's say if I took this, it's not going to let me upload. Yeah, let me take a different one. So let's say this was my list of opt-out that I accidentally marked as, I did not mark as opt-out. So, I'm going to map this. Then you have these additional options. If you don't do anything, like the default is do not update, but let's say this was not actually return mail, then I can say marked as return mail, no. So if I mark them as yes, then I could go back and change it to no. Then it would update all of them as not return mail.
Gotcha. Okay, so you can go back.
Okay.
And do that. Thank you.
Yeah, you can go back and do that. And you can also do, if you're bulk changing, opting out property addresses, then you can take a list of all the ones. For example, what a lot of investors do, they would get the list of recently sold properties from MLS or some other source, and they want to keep all their data in one place. So they would get, let's say, if they have a list of 1,000 properties that recently sold from their MLS, they would take that data once a month, they would upload it in the system, and they would mark it out as opt-out. The property just got sold recently, then they do not want to market to them, so they would just mark it as opt-out. Same thing on the return mail. If you have a big list of properties that you've sent mail to, came back as return mail, you just want to go in and just mark them as yes, then we do that. Same thing on skip trace. So you could do bulk skip tracing also. So if you already skip trace your list and then you want to keep a record of, you could say yes, then you can add a date when you skip trace it. So you have that information that says skip trace today and wherever you skip traced it. So this way you can keep a track of that also. If you want to go back and look at the data that you've skip traced, that when did you do that? So you can look at that information based on that also. Okay.
Hey, Sharad, can I ask a quick question?
Yeah, of course.
Sure. So marked as return mail, is that one by one, or is there a faster way to do that if you get 300-400 letters back?
If you get 300-400 letters back, one thing you can do is you can do it based, you can put it in an Excel file and do that. But if you have, if you have just let's say if you get 10 pieces today, then unfortunately you'll have to go in and then update those 10 10 mailing addresses as, return. We do have an update coming out next month, Feb 25th, with some cool updates to list stacking. That you will be able to manage some of that a little bit better, but I'm not aware of any way, let's say if you get a big stack of return mail, that you could just automatically have it synced up where it gets marked as return mail.
Okay, got it. So you just manually do it for now. Okay.
Yeah. Or you could just, put it in Excel, then it would clean up the addresses and mark them as return mail.
So you just upload an Excel RTS list in here somewhere, and it'll take out those leads.
Yeah. So what some people do is let's say if you're uploading this list, you can call it return mail. Then I would just create that list, and I would so I would just find return mail, and then I would just make sure I mark it as yes. It's up to you if you opt out and stuff, how you want to update that. But I would also do this return mail as yes, because if I go back, there's a filter of all the people that I wanted to look at. So if I want to look at all the mail that I've sent out and it's come back as return mail, so this is the one that I sent out, came back as return mail that I just uploaded. So in this case, I would not want to send another direct mail to this person because I've already sent direct mail. It came back as return. So I might want to call them or text them instead of sending them direct mail if it's coming back as return mail.
Got it. But do those leads come out of your funnel in List Automator, those returned mails, or no?
They don't, because some people like to still market to them. Again, it might be a return mail right now. That doesn't mean it's always going to be return mail. So what some people would do is, let's say if you send out a mail piece to someone at the beginning of the year, for example, and it comes back as return mail, then what we would do is, we would try them again 6 months later, and then see, if that property is no longer vacant. And then, hopefully if it's not, then, we'll reach out to the owner. So it's not, there's no like standard way of how the, how a typical investor would do it. Some people, like even on, it's very unique on what I might call a dead lead might be totally different from what you call a dead lead. Some investors would say, hey, it's not a dead lead unless the property is sold or the owner, as soon as the property is not sold and the owner is alive, it's not a dead lead. But for us, it's a little bit different, so it's unique from investor to investor. So you have all these filter options that you can use, and then you can decide at that point whether you want to market to them or not. But
and if I want to mail again for,
go ahead.
And if let's say I want to mail in 6 to 8 weeks, there's a way where the RTS would not be included in my kind of
correct
Excel file.
Correct. So what you could do is, let's say if I want to mail out to these people, that everybody that's on my absentee list and my driving list, right? So I want to see all the people that are on that list. And I also want to make sure that the property is vacant, okay? And I also want to make sure that return mail is set to no, okay? So I have these 69 people. So if I change this, so now if I change this, it goes to 69, but if I take this out, it goes to 70. But if I add back return mail, so the cool thing is, let's say if I want to do, I don't want to send anybody return mail, and then I'm going to go ahead and save this filter as my save active filter as my DM filter, right? So I do this, and let's say I send out my direct mail, right? So I send out direct mail to these 69 people. I'm actually going to add one other, I'm going to leave it like this. So let's say if I do this, right? I send out mail to those 69 people. So if I go back, I come back here next month, apply the same filter. But what I do now is, let's say I send out 69 mail pieces, and let's say this one came back as my return mail, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do yes. And again, it would apply the same thing as even if you do bulk upload. So you see how it went down from 69 to 68. So as you update the information, it would in real time update, the list for you. So it would go down to 67. Yeah. So then I'm only mailing to 60. So depending on how often you're mailing them, you just come in here and apply a filter and then just see how many records you get off that. I mean, you might have also added some more properties to the list. So you might have also added more properties that meet your criteria. So instead of 67, it might be 100 properties next month. But then once you save a filter, then you just come in, apply that filter every month, and then just mail based or do whatever marketing you're doing based on that.
Thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, just a couple of other questions. Someone asked this question, doesn't have a name. How do I upload a list with a tag? It's the same thing. If you go back here, I didn't use tags in this case, but you could. So if I go back to this and I go into next page, and you could use tags also. For example, if you want to, I'm just trying to think what purpose you would use tag. I generally tend to use the tag, just make it redundant as the list name. So if I have absentee list and driving for dollar list, for example, I might just call it the same tag and just call it, absentee tag, for example, or, like in this case, for demo purpose, I've used letter send, return to sender, title and so you could do all that. So you could use tags in here also if you wanted to. But what I've noticed primarily what people use tags for is to track their marketing. When is it that they send direct mail? But in our system, you don't necessarily need to do that. For example, if I go in right here, these 10 people, if I'm sending them direct mail, I can just go ahead and update marketing details. I can just say, direct mail and put in the, whenever the mail is going out, let's say Jan 27. So then it, eliminates any need for me to use the tags. That's when most of the people, how they're using tags is managing their marketing data. But if I go into this, it would have all that information for me in the marketing details, so direct mail, the campaign name and when I sent it. So now I can go ahead and filter based on people that I've sent direct mail to during a certain time period. But you could use tags in step 3, or you could also come in right here. And for example, if you've sent mail to them, but you also want to add tags, so you could also direct mail sent, and let's say Jan 27. So you could add this new tag also. So that's another way, if you want to use tags for those purposes also, you could do that. Adam has a question. Is there a limit? You want to unmute yourself, Adam?
Yeah, is there a limit on how many custom fields that we can use when we create our lists? We track a lot of unique data points that may not be in the given
Can you give me some examples?
categories. Sure, we append data with if we can get any estimated annual income, or about, sometimes net worth data is available from some
Right.
list sources.
Right. So with the update that I mentioned that we have coming up, this is on the update. So you will have some additional fields. So you'll have house type, bedrooms, bathroom, estimated value, square foot, lot size, and year built. But anything that you have, you can always upload that as note. So then it'll become part of that property for notes. So yeah, so you'll be able to do that. I mean, these are some of the most required fields that people would have: bedrooms, bathrooms. So ability to filter by that. So this is what the new design is going to look like. It's going to change from this to looking like this, so full page view, and then you can add your note. So if you have a file that you're importing with all that information, then you can upload that as notes, and then all of that would be part of that property.
Well, let me give you an example of maybe 2 other fields that we'd want to be able to track as list data points. So if it was someone, if we had, net worth estimates between X and Y, we might rank them higher if they fall within our target range. And I think if they're all within notes, you won't be able to list stack in that way. Similarly,
yeah, so actually in that case, using tags, because you're going based on the range, using tags would be a great way to do that. So let's say if you had somebody with net worth of like under 100,000, 100 to 250, 250 to 500, 500 plus, if those are, so that's where you could use tags and then filter based on the tags. You will still have the data in the notes, but that would be a perfect example of where you could use tags to do that.
Got you.
Okay,
thanks.
Yeah, absolutely. A couple of other questions. Mike has a question. I know it doesn't do it now, but will list stackable recent sold? So we could mark do not send mailer, also have list stackable mortgage or data mailing to low equity, since the data already gets pulled for list. Yeah, I mean, we're looking into it. The same source that we use for. So Mike has a question about, when you input a lead in our system, it pulls based on the property address, it pulls a bunch of different information. I mean, let me pull one. All right, so this one. Yeah, so if you see this, it's pulling bedrooms, bathroom, it didn't pull house type. Sorry, it should be, yeah, so it pulled owner information if it were available, bedroom, bathroom, square foot, and the house type. So, and then it also pulls if it's available, like last sold information. So Mike is asking if we can do that with list stacking also. Yeah, I mean, we're talking to a data provider if that's possible, where we could also get the data pulled for list stacking. Yeah, that's something we're looking into, but it's not anything is not set right now, but that's definitely a great suggestion. Cool. Ahmed has a question. How can I get this recording? So Ahmed, we put this on our YouTube channel and also on our Facebook group. It's being streamed live right now. So I'll share the group page right now. Yeah, so if you go to, I'm going to put the link in the chat. So if you go there, the call is being streamed right now. So, maybe 5-10 minutes after the call is done, you can go back and watch the recording. And then I would also, if this is your first call, I would also go back last couple of weeks where we talked about kind of, this is the third call in this series of, how to pull your list. Or the first week that we did 2 weeks ago on how to use PropStream. Last video was about how to use REsimpli, and this is kind of how to take all those lists and put it in REsimpli to like stack them. And next week we'll go into the marketing side of it, so you can kind of keep track of your marketing within REsimpli. Cool. Any other questions, guys? Anything else I can help with, whether it's related to this or anything else that you guys might have? Justin, did you have a question, or were you just waving in front of camera?
Yeah, sorry about that. I didn't have a question. But
that's cool.
are we looking at the 3.0 right now?
Yeah, I mean, Feb 25th is the date. What I showed you, like on the dev, that's going to be part of 3.0. But that's the release date is Feb 25th. I honestly got a little bit aggressive, excited about, pushing it to giant, but there's a lot that's coming, like websites, dialer, like it's a pretty massive update. So I think I was a bit too aggressive on shooting for Jan, but Feb 25th is the date when we're going to go live with 3.0.
Okay. Yeah, it's no problem on that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely, man. Yeah, there's some really cool things coming, like live call transfer, instant lead connect, like vendors, and like lots of cool things that you will be able to manage with 3.0 update. So
All
right.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. Any other questions that I can answer for you guys?
So do you just upload the lists? I might have missed it a little bit in the beginning. Your list, you just pretty simple Excel files, upload them for the automator.
Yeah, so what you would do, Rob, is depending on where you're getting your list from. So that's the part, like in this series, what I talked about was, most of the investors would use PropStream. You could use PropStream, list source. You could get it from your county, or you could get it from any list provider. It's all the same data. It's just more about like what filters you're using. So once you get that list, and then in the call last week, we talked about driving for dollars. So once you have those lists, then you're just importing them into the system and then stacking them against each other, and then just going after the most targeted prospects that you have in your list.
Got it.
Cool. All right. Any other questions, guys? If I can ask for a huge favor, I'm putting a link in the chat. If you guys got any value out of the call, if you guys can please go there and leave us a 5-star reviews. It really, really helps our team, especially the ones that don't get to talk to our users. They get very excited just, seeing the feedback from all the users that all the people that they're able to add value to. It takes like less than 30 seconds. So if you can do that, that would be super, super helpful. Yeah, and then next week call will be on, now that you have stacked list, kind of, what to do, like how to market to that list. And then even though we don't have dialer live now, I'll just kind of talk a little bit about how you would use dialer in REsimpli 3.0 when we do go live. So you guys have, we're in the process of hiring a dialer because we're going to start cold calling, but we'll do a preview of that and also talk about the direct mail side also. For me, I feel like direct mail is the most effective marketing long-term, and looking at data of a lot of investors that are doing consistent deals month in, month out. They like direct mail is a centerpiece of their marketing that they're doing. So, cool. All right, guys, thank you so much for being on the call. Really, really appreciate all the questions, great questions. And I'm looking forward to the call next week on the marketing side of this. Thank you. Have a wonderful rest of the week. I'll see you guys next week.